Louie T, welcome. You are here on lockdown coverage. Your man Louie T is covering the entire National Football League like a blanket. Baltimore Ravens on the road, handling a little bit of family business versus the Cleveland Browns in what turned out to be a very entertaining matchup. Let's talk about this game, but before we do, first, welcome to all of those who are new to the channel. Subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content into 2016 and beyond. Also on Twitter, at In the Lab Room. Give me a follow there. Also on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Thumbs up. Let me get that like while you're there. If you're in the chat discussion box on YouTube or you're on Twitter while watching this video, leave a comment using the hashtag LouieTeeLive to have it read at the end of this breakdown so that we can converse and dialogue back and forth. With that being said, let's jump into the breakdown of the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. A little bit of AFC North family business. You know how it goes. If these two teams say they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. So let's jump into this football game. Likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe for these two teams. I like to start with the likes and the road team. So we'll get to the first half likes from the Baltimore Ravens in this game. Devin Hester with a nice return after the Browns got on the board for the first time in this game. Devin Hester with a nice return. Good to see him up and running. He can be a factor for this Ravens team. We've seen over the years the Ravens have impacts from guys on kickoff return. Once upon a time, it was Jacoby Jones. Remember, John Harbaugh was a special team standout coach in this league before he got the head man job in Baltimore. Keep that in mind. He loves special teams. He prides himself on making sure that his team is getting the job done on special teams. It would not shock me in the least if Devin Hester bust one at some point this season for the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of special teams, point after touchdown blocked for 2 points. How often do you see that in this league where you get an extra point blocked, scooped, and scored for 2 points? But that was the first points of the game for the Ravens in this ball game as they were down 20-2 after the blocked PAT and return for a score. So that's John Harbaugh at his finest right there. Getting it done on special teams where you least expected his team has an impact on the game, and it's his special teams coming through early with a little bit of a momentum boost for a team that definitely needed it in this football game at the time they were down big 20-0. Eric Weddle with a pick. And just as that momentum started to turn ever so slightly, Ravens finally get a little something going. They finally get into the end zone. And then they follow that up with a pick by Eric Weddle that leads to a field goal right before the halftime break, giving them a chance to inch ever so closer to this Browns football team who had jumped on them 20-0. And all of a sudden, you look up at halftime, it's 20-12. Ravens say, look, we're right back in this ball game. Eric Weddle making his presence felt on this football team. Late second quarter offensive execution is on my likes list and is the last first half like for the Baltimore Ravens. Look, they were down big, man. They were down 20-0 on the road to a Cleveland Browns team that, look, you give them a little bit of confidence and they're off and running. You know, it doesn't take much for a team that isn't used to winning to gain confidence. And a couple of big plays early in this game, Joe Hayden picks off Joe Flacco, and all of a sudden you look up, you're down 20-0. Easily could have become a downhill snowball effect for this Ravens team, because remember, this isn't the Ravens from 3, 4, or 5 years ago that used to win every year. This is a team coming off of a rough season last year, and that lost games like this. Last year, they would have lost this game. That's the difference between the 2016 Ravens and the 2015 Ravens, is last year they would have found a way to lose this game. This year, they found a way to win, and that's generally what you get out of a Joe Flacco, a John Harbaugh-led football team, is they find ways to win instead of finding ways to lose. But last year was the opposite way. They were losing these types of games, and so to have the little execution, the interception, and find ways to squeeze every little point out of that first half that they could to get it to 12-20 going into the halftime break. You got to feel good if you're the Ravens. And I thought their execution late to get into field goal range for just incredible, a.k.a. Justin Tucker, was magnificent and got them within 8, a one-score game going into the halftime break. Let's go to the Browns and their likes for the first half. The opening touchdown drive, Josh McCown was sparkling, 3 of 3 on third downs on the drive. And it was just beautiful for them to come out and execute the way that they did. He was taking some shots, too. And that offensive line is going to have to be better because Josh McCown took some shots. And at one point, I thought he was going to have to leave the ball game because of the shots he was taking. And he took some shots on that first possession. But he still was able to stare down the gun barrel and deliver the football and allow guys to make plays. And so they end up getting in the end zone on a beautiful throw to Corey Coleman in the back of the end zone. Was that a touchdown? I don't know. I don't think there was definitive evidence that proved that it wasn't a touchdown. Had it been ruled incomplete on the field, they would have kept it incomplete. But because it was ruled a touchdown, they didn't have irrefutable evidence to turn it the other way. It looked like his foot was touching the white, but you couldn't be sure. It could have been all brown. You just didn't know. You had to leave it as is, and that's what they did for that opening drive touchdown to Corey Coleman. 85-yard run by Isaiah Crowell is the next like on my list. I mean, how can you not like an 85-yard run, the longest in Browns history in terms of a running play, scoring a touchdown? Phenomenal blocking and execution on the play, and great job of Isaiah Crowell splitting two defenders, the last two defenders, to be off to the races for that 85-yard touchdown. That really sent the Ravens into a state of shock because you think, okay, fine, they got a touchdown on the first possession, it happens. But to have them pinned deep in their own territory at their own 15 and the first play out of the gate to have an 85-yard touchdown run dropped on your head kind of sends you into a state of shock, and you're down 14-0 before you blinked twice. You're down 14-0, and then Flacco comes back, throws the interception, and next thing you know, you're down 20-0. But instead of hanging their head, they made plays, including that blocked extra point that we already talked about. Joe Hayden interception is the next like on my list. I just referenced that, stepping in front of the Joe Flacco offering to Steve Smith Sr., picking it off and giving the Browns some great field position, which they would turn into another Corey Coleman touchdown. And so it was a great start for the Browns. Problem is, it's a 4-quarter game, 2 halves of football, not 1 quarter. They did all of their damage in the first quarter. Speaking of which, first quarter barrage is my last like for the Browns on this first half list. That first quarter was dynamite. I mean, you can't play it much better. Outside of the block PAT, they dominated that first quarter of play. 3 touchdowns, turnover forced. They were dominant, big plays, you name it, they did it. Execution on third downs. They were phenomenal in that first quarter. Problem was they weren't phenomenal at all the rest of the game. In fact, they did not score a single point moving forward. And so for all the good they did in the first quarter, they forgot that there were still 3 more quarters of football left to play. And you had to know that if they didn't take advantage of that hot start and they allowed Baltimore to claw their way back into this game, that eventually they were going to catch up and pass them. And once you turn that momentum over to the other team, it's hard to wrestle it back. And that's what we saw happen in this ball game. Let's get to the first half dislikes for both teams. Start with the Ravens. The defense. I thought the defense was porous in the first half, specifically the first quarter. You give up 20 points in the first quarter and some big plays, the 85-yard touchdown run, a big pass to Corey Coleman for a touchdown, a lot of missed tackles. You come out sloppy like that and you get 20 put on your head in the first frame, you're asking for trouble. Luckily enough for you, it was the Browns. But had this been the Steelers, had this been the Bengals, this is a loss. On the road, to give up that many points in the first quarter, you're asking for a loss. Ravens have to tighten up. That defense was not impressive in that first half, specifically the first quarter. Flacco interception thrown to Joe Hayden. Got to be better there. No excuses to be throwing off your back foot, forcing the deal, and allowing Joe Hayden to come in. And Joe Hayden is another one of these guys that if he's playing with confidence, he's a dangerous football player to have to go up against. You saw that interception gave him a boatload of confidence. We saw the Joe Hayden of old in this football game. If the Browns can get this out of Joe Hayden moving forward, he's going to be a huge asset to that defensive football team. Chris Moore with a drop. It was a tough catch, but you expect a guy to make that type of catch. I'm telling the story. That wasn't a tough catch. He's got to catch that football. That's a touchdown. No way should he drop that. But I go back to his days at Cincinnati. He would drop the football every now and again. So this wasn't a surprise to me, but you hate to see a guy wide open like that if he catches this ball, it's a touchdown. He needs to catch the football. That's a rookie mistake. No excuses, though. Catch the football. That's a walk-in touchdown if Chris Moore catches that football. You go to the Browns in their first half dislikes. Blocked point after touchdown. Look, you can't have that. That killed all the momentum that you had at that time. You go up 21-0, the Ravens are reeling. Instead, you let them block the extra point. That's 2 points. It almost acted as a safety because not only did they get the 2 points, but they got the football after that. And it just felt like you just gave a little bit of that momentum away and they started to chip away at your momentum. And that was the first domino that fell, was that block point after. You got to take advantage. Again, the Browns, you're not good enough to have any mistakes, let alone a really bad self-inflicted one like a blocked extra point that goes for 2 points. It's one thing to have it blocked. It's another thing to have it scooped up and turn into 2 points for the opposition. That can't happen again. Snap infraction kills a 4th and 2 attempt. The Browns were hot early in this ball game, and they were feeling themselves, and they were going to go for it on 4th and 2 at about the 35-yard line of the Ravens. Had every right to go for it, and they probably would have gotten it with the way that they were executing in that first half. You'd like to think that they could have picked up 2 yards on a Josh McCown throw to Corey Coleman or Andrew Hawkins. It just seemed like they would be able to pick it up. Instead, you get a snap infraction by Cameron Irving that turns into 4th and 7, which then turns into a punt. Again, can't have those type of mistakes. I talked to my buddy on Twitter, or one of my viewers, I should say, on Twitter about the Browns game, and he asked me at the halftime break, what did I think? And I said, look, don't get stuck on 20. 20 points isn't going to win this game. And that's exactly what happened. The Browns picked a number that they were comfortable with, 20 in this case, and they didn't move. And I told him 20 isn't going to be enough. Get more. Score more. 20 points isn't going to win this game. Obviously, the Browns did not get that memo. Drop Hayden interception. He ended up getting another one in the game, but this was an opportunity on a deep ball to pick off Joe Flacco. And it was a tough catch over the shoulder, but I've seen Joe Hayden come down with plays like this before. And the bad part about this drop interception is that drive ended in a Ravens touchdown. So to Mike Wallace, you got to find a way to pick that one off if you're Joe Hayden. You got to find a way to have it. You want to win this football game, you got to make the plays that help you win this game. That would have been a huge play to keep the Ravens down and wrestle back any momentum that they were building. Wrestle it back right then and there instead of allowing them 4 or 5 plays later to get into the end zone and cut your lead to 20-9. So that was a tough break. McCown interception thrown right after they score that touchdown. The Browns get a chance to maybe get a field goal back or something just to feel good about themselves going into the halftime break. Instead, he throws interception to Eric Weddle that turns into a Ravens field goal right before the half. So again, now your lead that was 20-0 is now 20-12. It's dwindling right before your very eyes as you head into the halftime break. Let's get to the second half likes for both teams. We go back to the Ravens. The start to the second half, first possession, they march right down the field and get the football into the end zone yet again to Mike Wallace for his second touchdown of the game, cutting the lead to 1 at 20-19. At that point in the game, Browns starting to hear footsteps. They're getting nervous. You can tell the pressure is mounting and building. And on the Ravens sideline, they're gaining more and more confidence. they feel like they can come back and take this football game, and that they ended up doing. Dennis Pitta, thought he was phenomenal in this game. A healthy Dennis Pitta is a dangerous Dennis Pitta. That's always been the issue with him, is health. But if he's healthy, he's one of the best tight ends in this league in terms of catching the football. You saw it on display in this game. 9 catches, over 100 yards. Dennis Pitta is a problem when healthy, and you saw that again in this game. Can he stay healthy is the real question. Their talent is not an issue. Justin Tucker. I talk about Justin Tucker just about every game because the guy's phenomenal, and he hit a couple of big ones in this football game. And in a game where you only win by 5 points, every point is critical, and it's good to know you got a guy like Justin Tucker on your football team that can connect 3 field goals on the afternoon to give you the win. 25 unanswered points is on my second half likes list. Look, it's tough in this league to score 2 touchdowns unanswered. It's tough in this league to build that kind of momentum and keep it going and not allow the other team to break up your streak with a field goal or have something happen that allows the other team to get on the scoreboard. 25 unanswered points on the road is tough to do. But the Ravens did that in this game, and it was enough to win after being down 20-0 in this game. C.J. Mosley interception to wrap things up was my final like for the Ravens in this game. Bad decision by Josh McCown, but on the heels of the penalty by Terrell Pryor, you kind of felt a sense of desperation at that point, but don't throw it into quadruple coverage. It wasn't triple coverage. It wasn't double. It was 4 Ravens, 1 Cleveland Brown off your back foot. Probably not the smartest thing in the world to do. It wasn't 4th down. There was more time. Throw the football away. Live to fight another play. See if you can't find another way to get it into the end zone. That was a poor decision by Josh McCown, and it ultimately cost them this football game on the final possession. Let's go to the Browns and their second half likes. Joe Hayden with his second interception of the game. Could have easily have had 3 interceptions in this game. Hayden was magnificent, and this is the guy that we want to see. This is the guy that we have come to know and love in Cleveland. If he can just stay healthy, just like I mentioned with Dennis Pitta, if Joe Hayden can just stay healthy, he's one of the best corners in the entire National Football League. And Corey Coleman with 2 touchdowns in the first half on my second half likes list. Really, this is a whole game like for me. Good to see the first round pick stepping up and playing and performing like a first round pick. Breaking numerous tackles in this game. There was a huge catch on that last possession to give them a chance. He breaks 2 tackles, gets out of bounds, stops the clock when the Browns didn't have any timeouts remaining. It's plays like that that are going to continue to see Corey Coleman ascend as one of the younger receivers in this league. Had another one where he breaks a tackle on a hitch and gets into the end zone for the second touchdown of the game for him and gives the Browns that 20-0 lead. So Corey Coleman was special in this game, and that's why they made him their first round pick in this past spring's draft. Dislikes for both teams in the second half. For the Ravens, Flacco just throwing that second interception is the only dislike. The defense clamped down, didn't give up a single point in the second half. The offense got it going, did enough to win this football game, coming out, scoring on the first possession, and then tacking on a couple of field goals to take the lead and ultimately win this game. Offensively, they were good enough. Defensively, they were good enough. Special teams, they did enough. The only dislike in the second half is Flacco throwing the interception to Joe Hayden. For the Browns, second half dislikes, missed field goal by Patrick Murray. Look, again, when you're in a situation where you're trying to turn the tide, stem that momentum that the Ravens have built, 25 unanswered, you need something. A field goal would have been that antidote. It would have given you a little bit of confidence that, hey, we can still win this football game. Instead, it seems like when it rains, it pours in Cleveland, and they couldn't get anything going, and then you finally get a chance to kick a field goal, and your field goal kicker misses it. It just seems like the Browns couldn't get anything going in the second half of this ball game. Terrell Pryor with the taunting penalty late. This was a destructive penalty because not only did it negate his catch, but it also negated a penalty on the play by the Ravens. Had he not caught that football, still would have been a first down and a 5-yard penalty. But instead, he caught this football. They were going to be inside the Ravens' 15-yard line with a chance to take a couple of shots, if not 3 shots at the end zone to try to win this football game. And instead, he gets a foolish taunting penalty at the worst possible time that negated that penalty, made them have to do it over, that play. And essentially, Josh McCown felt the pressure of the time, the distance, and the situation, threw it up for grabs, ends up being picked on the next play. You could put a lot of the blame on that to Terrell Pryor and that taunting penalty. Josh McCown throwing that interception. I don't want to make any excuses for Josh McCown. That was a poor decision by a veteran quarterback. He knows better. They had more opportunities to take shots at the end zone. He didn't have to do that. Again, that penalty by Terrell Pryor really hurt the Browns. And again, when you're a team with a mindset like the Browns of here we go again, that kind of penalty in that situation usually spells doom for a team like Cleveland, and it proved to be the case yet again as Josh McCown throws an interception to C.J. Mosley to wrap this game up. No banana in the tailpipe for either one of these teams. You could argue that the banana in the tailpipe for the Ravens is going down 20-0. I don't see this Ravens team giving it up like that in many ball games this year. I think it was just a bad start. 85-yard touchdown run. Don't see them giving those up many more times this year. Remember, they only gave up 7 points last week to Buffalo. And not that Buffalo is a dynamic offense, but we saw Buffalo score over 30 points on Thursday Night Football. So it's not like the Bills can't score points. This Ravens defense isn't going to give it up like they did in this game. That probably would be my banana in the tailpipe for them. And for the Browns, I guess you could flip it on its head and say, are the Browns really going to score 20 points in one quarter that many times this season? I mean, probably not. And the fact that they scored 20 in one quarter and couldn't score another point the rest of the game is probably an indictment and more indicative of what this team is moving forward on the offensive side of the football. But in any event, that's Browns Ravens. Let's get to some of your comments because I see some in the discussion box. So I'll jump on some of these and see what you guys have to say. Andrew Kim says, Ravens were lucky on the taunting penalty, but scoring 20 unanswered points was impressive. The defense woke up after the first half that they did, and it was actually 25 unanswered points because remember the score was 20-0 before they blocked the extra point and got the 2-point conversion. So, and that kicked off the start scoring for the Ravens, and they didn't stop until they got to 25 and the victory. Andrew Kim says, and the offense started off slow, but Flacco still made his mistakes. The run game has to improve. Same with the secondary. The secondary was the issue coming into the season. We knew that. And they're still going to have issues, and that's going to be all season long. You're not going to fix that in season. You may get a little better as the season progresses, but you still have some issues there with just talent. This is a talent issue in Baltimore, and when it's a talent issue, you're not going to fix that in season. If this was a situation where you had young guys that had talent, but they just needed experience, then it could get better, and you could fix this in season. I don't see that happening. You're going to have issues in the secondary all season long, if you ask me. But the running game is a cause for concern. I don't really feel like you have any dynamic runners. That's why you're missing Dixon right now. Until he comes back, I don't think you have guys that are dynamic running backs. And so because of that, I think you're going to see the 3-yard runs. You're not going to see any 13, 15, 17, 20-yard runs. You just don't have any dynamic backs that can make guys miss out in space. West is okay. He's not great. And we know Justin Forsett is a plodding bruiser that's not really going to make a lot of people miss. Once you get Dixon back, that's when you're going to really be able to see if this run game can get on track at all, because he's going to be dynamic and make some guys miss and get yards that are hidden that aren't there unless you have a back that can get those yards for you. Andrew Kim says, also, Tavon Young return block extra point was the icing on the cake, similar to what happened last year. Yeah, it was. That was kind of crazy. You rarely see that in this league. It's Black Ace says, the Ravens run game is atrocious. I don't think I've seen them run under center yet. Yeah, they're struggling in the run game. Like I said, I'm not going to judge their run game until they get some more dynamic backs back there. And I know you would like to see them run more effectively with the guys you have. I don't blame you for that, but um, in order to maximize the run game, because most plays they're going to be unblocked defenders. You need guys that can make a defender miss. I don't think you have that guy right now healthy on this football team. So I think you're going to continue to see minimal gains in the running game until you get a guy like Dixon back from injury. We'll see what happens with this Ravens football team. But Savage Raven says, man, that was a crazy game. I was on pins and needles. I have so much respect for the Browns. The Browns always scare the hell out of the Ravens. They may not beat them all the time, but they play them incredibly tough. And that's what family business is all about. You just don't know what to expect. Throw the records out the window. These teams know each other because they're family members. And when you're family, they know each other like the back of their hands. And so Browns gave it a run. Probably should have won this game. When you're up 20 points in the first quarter, you're supposed to win. But the Browns simply don't know how to win and weren't able to hold on to this game. So that's going to do it for the Browns and the Ravens here on lockdown coverage. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the L.A.B room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. I'll be back. Got more games to break down. I will see you in a bit, including that Giants and Saints game coming at you shortly. See you in a bit. Have a good one.